While recording has officially begun, thank you all for joining us here today. Excuse me. Thank you for joining us for this 4-day volunteer workshop brought to you by the World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity, WHOPE.org in Nigeria, CEO Chaplain James Obentumibi, LA Global Foundation in India, Dr. Meenakshi Sawhney, Executive Director, 5 Points Youth Foundation in the United States, where I'm president, and Andrew Networks internationally through the AHIABGA-TV network, which promotes the work of the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, Advocates, Activists, sponsored by the PARXTC Export Trading Company. After Chaplain James requested my help in launching and coordinating this 4-day volunteer workshop on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, I decided to use the format introduced by the UN volunteers, along with the Young Person's Guide for Changing the World, published by AIESEC. AIESEC is a non-governmental, not-for-profit organization and consultative status with the United Nations Economic Council, affiliated with UNDLP, member of, and is recognized by the UNESCO ASIC International. I also decided to break up these 4 days to align with the SDG happiness pyramid, with 10 people goals as the foundation, 5 ecological goals in the middle, and 2 spiritual goals at the top of the pyramid. So I'll turn this over to Pastor James. Thank you so much. And the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Thank you, Your Excellency, Honorable Ambassador Dr. Williams Jr., for this opportunity to be here, and the Andrew Networks hosting this training. This training is going to be for 4 days to train the volunteers on the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. We know in our various communities, in our various local governments, in our various nations, countries, wherever we are, these are the sustainability we need to know and need to understand to help our programs and activities wherever we are. And that is why if you are volunteering as a volunteer to work in any organization, work with WHOPE, in these Sustainable Development Goals, you must understand what the SDG is all about. And that's why we're having this workshop, this training for all our volunteers. So you are welcome if you are joining us in this training. This is World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity. And my name is Chaplain James Mercy Obatumibi. I am the Chief Executive Officer for World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity. So I'm using this opportunity to welcome all our staffs and volunteers that are joining us in this training. And today, being the first day of this Honorable Ambassador Williams Jr., to take us on these Sustainable Development Goals. So goal 1 to 5 will be taken today, tomorrow as well, 10 to 15. And the third day is going to be 15 to the other 2 we're having. And we are going to have time for questions and answers. So be ready to write whatever notes you want to write. Be ready to ask questions and be ready to be active after this training, because the aim and objective is for us to train you and to be able to serve in your various communities. So I want to say welcome to everyone, and I want you to clear your minds. If you think you have known all, I think today you're still going to know that you have not known all. You are here to learn, and let's embrace that. And at the end of today's class, you'll be able to say you are really blessed. So thank you for joining us. I would like to hand over to His Excellency, Ambassador Williams Jr., to take us into this class. And mind you, I've told you, if you are joining us, make sure you use your name, like this Galas J7. Please correct that. We know a phone to be Galas J7 and not a human being. please put your name there. So we're able to identify you or address you by the name. Please do that. And if we see anyone that have not put his or her name, please do now. Please do now. Galas G7, please put your name. So as we're expecting her to do that, can we move on with today's training? Your Excellency, Ambassador Williams Jr., is over to you, please.
Well, thank you so much, and welcome everyone. Just to let you know, in the spirit of volunteerism, I've been volunteering for most of my life, but in particular, it's very important what we're dealing with now, the Sustainable Development Goals. As you may or may not know, this was these 17 goals were outlined in 2015, and we're over halfway towards accomplishing those goals now. Unfortunately, we're only achieving 15% worldwide of accomplishing those objectives. The reason why you're here is that we're trusting you to be the ones to carry this to the future. One of the challenges that we find is that many organizations just don't know what the Sustainable Development Goals are, and they're not aware of how what they're already doing impacts one or more of these Sustainable Development Goals. It's important that you educate yourselves. Your nonprofit organization is still a business. You must operate that with the fullest intent, do all you can to bring full value to the work that you do. It's also important for you to understand that the work we're doing here is the very same work that countries are trying to do, but they can't do it without the people. So let me be very clear. My involvement with this began not in 2015, but in 2000. That's the year that Kofi Annan, the only sub-Saharan African General Secretary of the United Nations, launched the Millennium Development Goals for 1,000 years for us to achieve peace on Earth. The first 15 years were called the Millennial Development Goals. However, those first 8 goals began with number 1, ending poverty, and number 2, building global partnerships for change. In the Sustainable Development Goals, it begins with ending poverty and ends with global partnerships to accomplish that goal. The difference is that those first 8 goals were chosen by a handful of people in the bottom of the United Nations building in New York. These 17 goals were only achieved after taking surveys from over 1 million people around the world. And also, in the year that it was launched, the African Union had just completed what's called the Common African Position on the Post-Millennial Development Goals. So what we have now with these Sustainable Development Goals is not something that came out of Washington, D.C. The bulk of this is from Africa. It's important that you understand that, know how important what you do is to what we're doing. So I'm going to share my screen briefly to give you just an overview of what the Sustainable Development Goals are, but please consider this to be an open book test. I've already provided to Ambassador James the curriculum that we'll be using today, and it's made publicly available, as I said, by the United Nations Volunteer Group. There's no secrets. We want you to take notes. We want you to identify which of these 17 goals you're already working in. It could be more than one, but we would like you to choose maybe the top 3, and then you will begin to know how important what you're doing is. Alongside the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, Kofi Annan launched what's called the UN Global Compact. My organization is a member of that, but more importantly, there's a group called the CFO Task Force, Chief Financial Officer Task Force. These represent 72 major corporations. They control $1.5 trillion of market cap. they've devoted 1/3 of that, $500 billion, to accomplishing these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So it's important for you and your organization to make sure you are qualified to participate in taking advantage of the efforts that are being undergone worldwide. Only you can do that. We do have tools that can assist you. We do have a form where you can all identify your top 3 goals and then submit them to us. We're not depending on anyone else. We're volunteering. We're volunteering to do this in a smart way. I'm going to briefly share my screen with you to provide you with what I hope is something very helpful. When Pastor James asked me to undertake this last week, I did reach out for the Young Person's Guide to Changing the World, which is by AHIABGA. But I also decided to use this format to introduce you to what you now see on your screen as the SDG pyramid for happiness. At the end of the day, our kids are not going to listen to what we say. They're going to watch what we do. So I do want to make sure you understand what we're dealing with here. So I'm going to play this.
To solve the world's problems, the United Nations and world leaders launched 17 goals called the Sustainable Development Goals to make for a better and happier world. The first 10 goals are inclusiveness, humanitarian, social, and people problems. The next 5 goals are about sustainability and nature. Finally, goals 16 and 17 on peace and partnership are about spiritual values. Having harmonies with people, nature, and the spiritual make the world a happy place. This is the SDG pyramid to happiness.
Now that seems very simple. The first 10 goals are focused on people, the second 10 goals on ecology, and the third 10 goals on spiritual values. Now, again, this is an open book test. We want you to be able to always be able to reach out for additional information anytime you need it. So on my website, andrewnetworks.com, I have a list there of all the goals and videos that may assist you. But for today's workshop, I'm going to share with you this book, as I said, Young Person's Guide to Changing the World. Any of you who provide your email address will be able to get this from Pastor James, or he can send it to you by your WhatsApp. So you'll have it in your toolkit. This is very important because this will provide a guideline for you that's being used around the world. You don't have to think of what to do yourself. Just have to take advantage of what's already there available to you. So if you can see my screen now, let me move this great block out of the way here if I can, just a moment. Hide. Okay, I have a little bit of difficulty here. Just 1 second here. I'm trying to hide this. Oh, I'm not the host here. So let me do this. So this is the Young Person's Guide to Changing the World. Yes. And this is very simple. Again, this is your workbook. It's powered by AHIABGA in partnership with UN volunteers. The table of contents are very simple about the guide, about youth for global goals and AHIABGA, how to use it, for youth, organizations, actions, and who made it possible. This is important for you to understand as your organization continues. All of us are doing this work for our children. So it's important to get them involved as quickly as possible. This is just information. I don't want to take up your time today to go over what you can read for yourself, but I do want to scroll through this just so you'll be familiar with it. I will take the time to read this, though. The Youth for Global Goals is an initiative powered by AHIABGA. It aims to develop the leadership potential of young people by engaging them in purposeful and cross-cultural projects around the globe designed to impact the Sustainable Development Goals. We believe that youth is an important player to achieve the goals. We aim to educate more people about the Sustainable Development Goals and provide volunteer opportunities, among other activities, to take action on the issues you care about. that we're doing this through awareness, understanding, and action. Again, this booklet is available to you through Pastor James, so you don't have to try to remember this all right now. I'm not going to read all this to you. You can read it yourself and in the comfort of your own organization. But what I urge you to do is do what we're doing today and use this guide to educate the members of your non-governmental organization. After all, we are none of us able to do this all by ourselves. The whole idea is to engage our entire community so that this is an opportunity for us to change the world for our own conditions. I do want to introduce this to you. You'll see that there are options for businesses, non-governmental organizations, as well as educational institutions. But also, this could apply to faith-based organizations, churches, mosques, temples. Any interfaith organization can use this. Again, I'll briefly read this before we get started in today's events. Internal campaigns. You can organize internal challenges for your members and volunteers to complete actions from the guide and recognize the best achievers. You can raise awareness and engage people inside and outside of your organization by spreading the guide through your channels and letting them adopt the actions from the guide in their daily lives, and include in your projects or initiatives. Review your projects and initiatives and see how the actions from the guide can fit into your project plan and empower more young people to do something for the SDGs. So, jumping right in, goal number 1. And as I said, I had suggested to Pastor James that we break this up into segments where we would do 5 today and 5 tomorrow for the first 10, and then 5 and then 2. But I believe we are mature enough to work ourselves through this. So today, because we got a late start, we're only going to deal with 4. We're going to begin with number 1, no poverty. What is it about? No extreme poverty. No one lives with less than $1.25 USD a day. 2, reducing the number of people living in poverty by half. No matter who you are, you have equal rights to economic resources and basic services. Build resilience of vulnerable communities to climate disasters and other environmental, social, and economic emergencies. How can you start? And I would ask if you could take this opportunity in the chat. If you have questions, put them in the chat. And when we get through with the presentation, we'll have a Q&A. And Pastor James has been doing this a lot longer than I have. So my task is just to provide you with the basic information. So for example, how can you start? The number of people living in poverty is highly connected to the unemployment rate and the lack of education amongst most vulnerable communities. One way you can do this is organize and or take part in entrepreneurial training. Increasing the amount of entrepreneurs is a solution. It will provide more people with jobs and income, thus eradicating poverty. Invite local entrepreneurs to your class to deliver trainings, or find an existing program to develop skills for yourself and your class. Organize and or take part in a job and skills training program. By improving and learning new skills, you and your peers become more competent to enter the job market and get employed. You can invite or organize a meetup with professionals from different fields. It can even be your parents in your school, university, or local community space. Learn about your economic rights, savings, credit, and debt management. Convince your teachers or professors to run a class about rights on land and property, policies influencing small business, financing and microloans. Start making it personal and family budget to learn financial management and be prepared to manage your finances. Raise awareness about social protection programs. A majority of the countries have policies to protect vulnerable communities through different subsidies, and other benefits. Some people don't even know about this and are therefore not standing up for their rights. Inform yourselves about this topic and then spread the information to all the people in your surroundings, friends, families, even your neighbors who you would only greet in the hallway. Support campaigns collecting items for victims of various emergencies. Various development agencies, Red Cross, UNICEF, etc., run campaigns to support communities which are affected by the disasters. Donate your clothes, food, supplies, etc., to support those in need. So, Pastor James, if you like, I can put a pin in it there and turn it over to you to address any questions or concerns we have here. And I'll turn it over to the audience to address their comments. So, Pastor James, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you, Ambassador Andrew. Please, we have heard about the goal 1 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is no poverty. Please, if you have any question based on what you have heard, please can you ask your question now?
Hello?
Yes, please raise your hand and go right ahead. Say your name, please. We are recording this, so we know who you are, if you're calling from a country, what the country is, and if you're representing an organization, the name of the corporation. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Go ahead, please, your name and where you are joining us from. And if you have any organization, you tell us the name of your organization. Hello.
Hello. I'm
Go
here
ahead, please.
How are you? I'm Azhar Mingar from Pakistan, which I was in such an informative workshop. So I have questions regarding organization and regarding what you can say United Nations that sustainable goals, which are reduction of poverty or etc. in estimated in 2030. So we are living in that nation and we are living in that particular country. There are many people who are come on the lowest blow through education, through environment, and there are different, because we are victims of climate change. We are victims of earthquake. We are victims of poverty. So we are facing such a things in this region. And throughout Asia, there are many countries who are facing that. But we didn't have any platforms.
Excuse me, sir. This is a workshop. We're dealing right now with SDG number 1. Please state your question and we'll go to the next person. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, what we need from you is a question. Based on what we have learned, we still have other goals. We still have more of them. So let's ask questions based on each goal we have learned or heard about.
Yes.
So we don't need to jump to the other goals we have not mentioned or talked about.
Yeah. Otherwise,
so go ahead, please.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll put the questions in the chat, and then we'll just continue to go through each one of the separate topics today, and then we'll deal with it afterwards. So we have that option too, Pastor James. Just to let you know.
Yes, that's correct. So I think if there is any question, they could drop that as a text message, then we'll read that out. So you can go ahead, Your Excellency. Let's go to the second group.
Okay.
Please, if you have any question, just drop that as a message in the box. Thank you.
Thank you. So proceeding to SDG number 2. This involves zero hunger. Zero hunger, what is it about? The idea is that no one goes to bed hungry. Everyone has enough nutritious food stay healthy, we need to increase agricultural productivity and access to resources for local producers, increase investment in rural infrastructure and agricultural research. Why this matters. Around 1 in 8 people in the world were estimated to be suffering from chronic hunger. Even if you're lucky enough not to be among them, there might be people in your school, apartment block, or neighborhood are going to bed hungry. So how can you start? 1, you can donate to food banks. Approximately 1.3 billion tons of food gets lost or wasted every year. Make sure you donate leftovers from your personal events like birthdays, graduations, etc., or school and universities to the nearest food bank to help people in need. 2, organize a day to feed people in local shelters. Volunteer with your friends in a local shelter to collect and give away food, or even make it a regular class activity. Learn how to cook. By learning how to cook, you make healthier and more nutritious food to stay healthy. Again, keep in mind, these are guidelines for youth, but from an organizational standpoint, you must think of ways your organization can begin to adapt some of these objectives for your own goals and objectives. 3, educate yourself and others about nutrition. Our health depends on the food we consume. By learning more about nutrition and following a healthy diet, you'll increase your productivity and strengthen your health. Make sure to check food nutrition while shopping. Buy from local farmers and producers. Make it a habit of buying food from the local shops or markets to support local farmers and their businesses. Do write research a paper related to agricultural advancement. The agricultural sector requires innovation and technological advancement to grow productivity and ensure sustainability. Educate yourself on new agricultural practices and share it with your class or your community to help raise awareness. Sustainable Development Goal number 3, good health and well-being. What is it about? Every child witnesses his or her 5th birthday, which means there is a very high infant mortality rate. And the goal of the objective of this goal is to make sure our kids reach at least their 5th birthday as a minimum. We want to reduce the number of people suffering from mental illness by a third. We want to end the epidemic of AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and other diseases. Strengthen the prevention of drug and alcohol abuse. Significantly reduce the number of deaths from traffic accidents. Produce universal access to sexual and reproductive health services. Ensure equal and fair access to medicine for all. So, there are several ways to contribute to a healthier world. Again, please understand from an organizational standpoint, this is information that's important that you know and you can share not just with your children, but also with your community. This could be your business or your organization working in the healthcare field. I'm not going to read this particular group. I am going to allow you to review it when Pastor James provides you the curriculum. Number 4 for today is quality education. What is it about? The intent is that every child gets at least 12 years of education to provide equal access to education for all, because of course your education gets you employed. And we want to make sure that children are able to access affordable and quality technical education, including university. And every young person knows how to read and write. All learners are educated about sustainable lifestyles. The intent is to build safe, nonviolent, inclusive, and effective learning environments. So, again, there are several opportunities here that are provided for young people to learn how to take advantage of this effort to focus on quality education. Now, Pastor James, as I said, I wanted to begin with a focus on how these organizations can do work that impacts youth. Many of them already do. This is nothing new to them, but the idea is for you to identify how what you're already doing impacts one or more of these sustainable development goals. So it's important that we dig a little deeper into this. I'm going to share my screen once again, and now share with you the adult version of what we've been talking about just for children, because it is important that we ourselves have an understanding of how we can get information about each of these goals. And it's very simple. Online, if you can access it through your phone, or you can access it through your computer, it's very, very simple. Globalgoals.org. Globalgoals.org. And you /goals, GOALS. And this is where your organization needs to come, because this digs down deeply into what each of these goals is addressing. Again, number one, no poverty. And the intent is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. And let's see here. Yes. Each of these goals is only a beginning. As I mentioned to you, the first 8 goals, the Millennium Development Goals, they were just kind of vague ideas about what people wanted to do. The idea for these Sustainable Development Goals is to dig down so you have tangible outcomes and ways to measure your ability to accomplish the objectives that you're trying to do. So, for example, we talked about no poverty, but no poverty, number one, is broken down into several specific targets. Number one is to eradicate extreme poverty. 1.1 is eradicate extreme poverty. 1.2, reduce poverty by at least 50%. 1.3, implement social protection systems. 1.4, provide equal rights to ownership, basic services, technology, and economic resources. Target 1.5, build resilience to environmental, economic, and social disasters. 1.6, mobilize resources to implement policies to end poverty. And target 1.7, create pro-poor and gender-sensitive policy frameworks. Again, your homework is to go to globalgoals.org, globalgoals.org, so you can actually access information here about ways your organization, if you're focused on this objective, can find tools and resources to help you accomplish that. For example, some things to do would be to find a charity you want to support. You could donate what you don't use to local charities, support campaigns collecting items for food, items for victims of emergencies, and stay informed. Those are very simple things, but they also provide guidelines for schools and businesses. And remember, your nonprofit is a business. You have to start planning so that you can sustain yourself and be able to not just survive, but thrive. That's goal number one. Goal number 2, again, you have 17 goals. All these are listed here. This is what I recommend you use as your guideline, because many of you are seeking donations from other organizations. They need to know that what you're doing impacts one or more of these sustainable development goals. Again, goal number 2 is for zero hunger. End hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. On this page, you'll find resources, ways you can take actions, and things you can do. Also, you can sign up online to get regular updates so that your organization can keep in touch with what's going on. But again, you need to know what the targets are. Target 2.1 is to provide universal access to safe and nutritious food. Is that what you do? Then you need to include that in your promotional materials describing your mission and statement, your mission and objectives. Target 2.2, in all forms of malnutrition. 2.3, double the productivity and incomes of small-scale food producers. If you're a food producing organization, you need to make sure that you let everyone know that you are in fact aware of this so that you can align yourself with those organizations and donors who are committed to accomplishing that objective. Target 2.4, sustainable food production and resilient agricultural practices. It may be time for you to change the way that you're dealing with growing your food so that you can protect the land and also be able to maintain genetic diversity in food production. Also, there's a target 2.6 is to invest in rural infrastructure, agricultural research, technology, and gene banks. Use your phone, go online, do research, find out what companies in your area are focused on these areas that you may be aligned with. Target 2.7, prevent agricultural trade restrictions, market distortions, and export subsidies. Obviously, these are things that governments have to do, not you as an organization, but your vote makes a difference. Who you put into power makes a difference. Keep in mind, these are your public servants, but you must hold them accountable. Target 2.8, finally, is to ensure stable food commodity markets and timely access to information. Guess who's the source of that information? You are. You have to plug yourself into the system so that there can be up-to-date information about what's actually happening on the ground, not on people's paper, not in their minds, but what's happening actually on the ground. Again, this is globalgoals.org, goal 2. You can find resources and planning for schools and businesses. You can also stay updated simply by adding your name to their mailing list. The World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity is not here to do everything for you, but we are here to give you tools and resources so that you can grow beyond the limitations that you've been faced with so far. Good health and well-being. Again, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. You can find resources, take actions, and find things to do. These are the targets you need to be aware of. Number 1, or I should say 3.1, reduce maternal mortality. 3.2, end all preventable deaths under 5 years of age. Target 3.3, fight communicable diseases. Target 3.4, reduce mortality from non-communicable diseases and promote mental health. Target 3.5, prevent and treat substance abuse. Target 3.6, reduce road injuries and deaths. Target 3.7, universal access to sexual and reproductive care, family planning, and education. Target 3.8, achieve universal health coverage. Target 3.9, reduce illnesses and death from hazardous chemicals and pollutions. Target 3A, implement the WHO framework Convention on Tobacco Control. Target 3B, support research, development, and universal access to affordable vaccines and medicines. Target 3.3C, increase health financing and support health workforce in developing countries. Again, we understand you're not a government, but it is important that you understand you align yourself with others in your sector so that collectively you can hold accountable the governments responsible for making these commitments. And target 3D, improve early warning systems for global health risks. This doesn't mean just earthquakes, but also things like floods that are having such a devastating impact across the United States, Europe, and of course, Africa. Again, at the end of each one of these, you can find planning tools. You can also find additional learning information for what you want to accomplish. And it's very simple. You can download it to your phone or to your computer, and you can stay updated on a regular, ongoing basis so that you can educate yourself about ways that you can improve the outcomes of what your organization is doing. And finally, for today, goal number 4, which is quality education. Almost everyone of attending this event today is focused on or has an impact on quality education, if nothing more than educating your community about what you're doing. But again, number 4 is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. You can find resources, take action, things to do. And there's also a newsletter. Everyone can help to make sure we meet the goals. These are 10 targets. So again, you have to dig deep, take a deep dive into each of these goals. And in particular, please understand that you have to educate yourself about what these goals mean to you. So for target 4.1, for example, free primary and secondary education. Target 4.2 is to provide equal access to quality pre-primary education. 4.3, equal access to affordable technical, vocational, and higher education. 4.4, increase the number of people with relevant skills for financial success. 4.5, eliminate all discrimination in education. 4.6, universal literacy and numeracy. 4.7, education for sustainable development and global citizenship. 4.8, build and upgrade inclusive and safe schools. 4.9, expand higher education scholarships for developing countries. 4.8, increase the supply of qualified teachers in developing countries. Again, if you're in the educational field, there are organizations that are dedicated to assisting you to accomplish these objectives. You have to take the initiative to align yourself with ongoing resources to better able support what you're trying to accomplish and to grow what you're doing, not just locally, but throughout the region. Again, on each of these goals, globalgoals.org/goals, you'll find learning tools and you'll find planning tools. And you can stay updated by registering for their newsletter. So Pastor James, thank you so much for this opportunity for me to walk through these first 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals. I hope the members of our workshop have been typing in information or questions or comments. But Pastor James, I'll turn the floor back over to you. Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't see any questions I can answer in the chat. As our,
Greetings, Your Honor. I have a question. It is in the chat.
oh, please go right ahead. Thank you. And please say your name and your organization and the country you're from. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Her Excellency Ambassador Dr. Anita McCaney, and I'm from the United States of America, and my NGO supports human rights and education among girls and boys, particularly poor orphans. We've been doing this for the past 3 years. So I know which sustainable development goals that applies to, but how would I proceed to align with the organization here?
Okay, well, that's a very direct question, a very simple one to answer. Well, first of all, let me dig a little further. You say you're here in the United States, but where specifically, what city and state?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, Cleveland, Ohio. Well, as you may know, that the Board of Education in Cleveland, they actually have a specific plan of action for the activities. And in fact, it's true of most cities in the United States. So it's not just Cleveland. But your first task is to educate yourself about what available goals, well, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. In the first place, you have the obligation to find out what associations that you are qualified to join and those that you're already a member of and what their goals and objectives are and what resources are available. Your task is always to first have a clear idea of what your mission is, and then to carefully align yourself with those organizations that are supposed to be accomplishing what you're doing, but who actually may be only doing it on paper. It's up to you to be the one to introduce yourself, introduce your services, and to prove that what you're doing aligns with the resources that are already available in your local community. I know that's kind of a generic question, but without more information, that's all I can suggest at this moment.
Yes, thank you very much. It's called the Titus 10 Foundation, and for 3 years we have actually educated boys and girls in Ghana and in Kenya. And so we're looking to move to more local help for education because it's global, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just in Africa. So we're looking to, move our program to more American young people. And so you recommend me just researching other organizations that I could align myself with.
Well, I'm glad you gave us more information. For example, there is a push throughout the entire African continent to be the ones to engage what they call their diaspora. And so it is, in fact, Kenya does have a commission that's responsible for connecting together Kenyans with Kenyans in Kenya with Kenyans who are in other parts of the world. For example, in the United States, I would suggest that you think about the universities. If you're working in Kenya in the educational field, I'm not sure whether you are working with local schools or at what tertiary levels or elementary levels. I don't know. But if your foundation is engaged with working with any university on the continent of Africa, I recommend you look locally in Cleveland to find out which, if any of those universities already are focused on exchange programs so that you can begin to strengthen the support from people that are dedicated to helping you accomplish your goals and objectives.
That's perfect because I actually have written recommendations to U.S. universities for young people that are abroad. So I really like that idea that you just mentioned about exchange students and aligning myself with those universities. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Well, more specifically, if you Google the Center for African Volunteers, they're based in Nairobi, Kenya. The CEO of that, Josephat Moses, has dedicated his life to delivering those solutions. Also, he's working right now with an exchange program with Germany. So there's an exchange program already in place. I would suggest you connect directly with Josephat Moses in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, to be able to find out ways perhaps you could build upon the successes that you've already had. The idea is that never start from scratch. The most important resource you have is your learned experience and the contacts and relationships that you've already had and can make. So that would be my recommendation to you. But if you put your contact information in the chat, I'll be happy to follow up with you and connect you if I'm able to, or reach out to Pastor James. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, Pastor James, as well, as I've been on other events with him. So thank you so much for this opportunity. God bless you.
God bless you. Okeke Gabriel, your hand is raised. Perhaps you have a question or comment. You have a very bad you have a very bad connection. Can't hear you. I would suggest you type in the information if at all possible. You can try again, but I can't hear you.
Okay. Okay. I should type the information.
Well, I hear you better now. So speak.
Okay. Okay. I'm speaking on the target goal number 2. No hunger. I want to ask some questions. Now, I happen to be a food professional, food science and technology, and I'm practicing at the moment. I have a processing unit too. Then I have this idea of how I can curtail post-harvest losses in fresh agricultural produce. But the problem is that I don't have the fund to prosecute such a project, because it is going to be a massive project that is of a national interest. But then, and I ask you, how can I, or which organizations can I be able to align with in my area to help me to foster the project, bring up the project to limelight, so that it will be able to curtail the post-harvest losses we experience annually every harvest season, and be able to ensure food security in my area. That's what I want to know. Thank you, sir.
Okay, where are you? What is your location? Where are you? What city? Where are you?
I'm present in Lagos, Nigeria.
Well, that you should be able to find a lot of resources, because the major cities such as Lagos, they are dedicated to accomplishing what you're saying you want to do. You have to educate yourself about what is existing in that area already. There are minister of that particular state. They already have a plan in action. It's up to you to find out what the existing plan is, that you can align yourself with what they're doing and not expect them to align themselves with what you're doing, sir. You have homework to do.
Yeah.
So without going into more details about that right now, this workshop is really intended to assist those existing organizations to align again what they're doing with more of the sustainable development goals. In that regard, number 2, food is a very big, and agriculture is a very big. So again, you have to find ways you can connect yourself to the bigger channels all around you. That's the only way you're going to that you need in your local. Thank you. Next question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, if there are no more questions, we'll wrap it up. Ball's in your court. Well, again, technology is only great when it works. We seem to have lost Pastor James. So again, unless let me check the chat to see if there's anything there I need to address. Just a question here from Professor Anita McKinney. My NGO supports human rights and education among young boys and girls, particularly poor orphans. And how should I proceed to align our NGO here? I apologize, I'm just now reading the question, but I'm glad you brought it up. Please understand, what we're doing locally has global implications and vice versa. December 10th of this year is the 75th anniversary for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Please Google that, because it's been a year-long push for human rights. Earlier, you mentioned education, but only when I see your chat message that I see that you're involved with human rights as well. Why not combine the two? Why not find ways that you can promote human rights issues in your local community here in the United States, particularly in Cleveland? And also, you need to think about the bigger picture. 2015 to 2024 is the International Decade for People of African Descent. So everyone on this call, I would believe, has an impact on that movement. But again, unless you align yourself with it, it's going to pass you by. So, Professor Anita, I would suggest that you do your homework and find ways that, again, take a look at your local media to see what's going on locally, that you can introduce yourself in a way that you provide a solution. The best way that we can increase our income streams is to make ourselves more valuable to people that have the money to spend for what it is we're doing, many of them more money than we have ourselves. But if we're doing the work, they get the credit and we all win. So just a note for you, Professor Anita. Yeah. The first thing I do see a question here about what is the umbrella goal. And I did go over all 17 goals at the beginning. Today's goals were just focused on the first 4. But of the 17 sustainable development goals, as I said from the beginning, the last one is the umbrella. For the Millennium Development Goals, it was global partnerships. And for the Sustainable Development Goals, is global partnerships. So SDG number 17 is the umbrella for all of the goals. We do have a bit of time here. Please raise your hands if I haven't addressed your questions in the chat. I'm just scrolling up to see as I go along here. But let me share my screen and work through these 17 goals one more time. Just a moment. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. So I'm going to take you, and again, feel free to go to andrewnetworks.com. On my website, I have a lot of information about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but one of them, all of these are just publicly available. Again, this is the open book test. There's nothing that is hidden here. It's all available online. But one of the things I did here was to find this very important. United Nations. Let's see here. Nations is an organization with goals of peace and sustainable development around the world. Their mission is huge. You know, I may have to offer you an apology. I'm not sure if you heard the sound there or not. I apologize, but the 17 Sustainable 17 is the umbrella that allows us all to work together with all the goals and all people around the world, if that's an answer to your question. Now's the time to raise your hand for any final questions. I don't see any more in the chat that I can answer. So I'm going to move towards closing, and we'll pick this up tomorrow with the next 4 goals. Muhammad Sise, I see your hand raised. You have to unmute yourself so we can hear you. Going once, going twice. Mamadou Sise, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Good day to everyone. Actually, I asked a question that says, based on the goals that we have discussed so far from goal 1 to goal 4, which one is the umbrella for these 4 goals? That if we definitely the other goals, that is the question that I asked.
Well, I just didn't answer your question. That is goal 17, which is global partnerships for development. That is the umbrella for all the goals. Uba, I see your hand raised. Please state where you're from and your name, your organization, Uba.
Good afternoon. My
Greetings.
name is Opan Konshaudi from Ibadan, Nigeria. I'm a member of WHOPE, World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity, a volunteer. However, actually, I went through the chat room. I saw some persons raised issues on within the context of African leaders not doing the needful to align with the goals of the SDG. I have a different perception that the conglomerate of Africans here, we should not be lamenting, but that within our reach, within the local community we come from, what are we doing differently from what our leader does? You might not be receiving bogus salary or depending on government coffers, before you contribute. But within your reach, 2,000, 3,000, you can pay someone's school fees, thereby aligning, doing that. It means that you're actually working in line with the goal of the SDG. It must not be that the SDG will have to come, but your burning desire to ensure that to contribute to development of humanity is actually a great substance. So I want to believe that Africans should move from the paradigm of complaining, from the paradigm of depending on leaders so much, but from the paradigm of this passion for sustainable development, passion to contribute to the goals of the MDGs. Have not been a member of the MDG, except recently as a result of the activities of the WHOPE, and today I'm here. But before now, within my local community in northern Nigeria, at least I knew I have contributed positively in terms of supporting individuals, especially the girl child. I know of some of them that have supported, and today they are done with secondary school education, and they are looking even forward to a university, to proceed to university education. They road jam, they made it one sitting, and their WHOPE is good. So therefore, we should not be depending or waiting for government to do everything for us. Oh, those are the government, our vote don't count. Are we even sure that we complaining, if you are voted there, you will not still behave like what those that are there are doing? So what actually different can we do from what our leaders are doing? So I must actually not be a member or a participant or a beneficiary of the SDG before I contribute to the development of humanity. Let's do it. I saw the goals, ends to poverty, quality education, good health and well-being. At least at our level, we can actually contribute the little we can to advance this cause. Thank you very much. That is just my idea. And I feel as we share so that we don't depend on anybody else. Anybody should come and do it for us. We can do it wherever we are. With passion, dedication, and determination, we can really contribute to the development and advancement of humanity. Thank you, sir.
Well, you're welcome, but thank you, because that's the whole point of us coming together ourselves and not waiting for a government to do these things. What I'm saying to you is that these goals are what governments have said need to be done, but we know it's only up to us to get them done. I'm saying we need to take the opportunity to articulate how what we are doing does impact one or more of these goals. And we don't have to limit ourselves to working only with the government. We can work with corporations who are committed to accomplishing these objectives. I know in Nigeria, there are major corporations from around the world that may be headquartered in the United States or Europe, but they're working there in Nigeria. They have published publicly what they claim they are supposed to be doing for one or more of these sustainable development goals. I'm suggesting that, for example, United Nations Global Compact, that is a place that has 15,000 corporations that every year publicly claim what they're doing for one or more of these goals. It's your task to take a look around to see where you can connect together with those bigger corporations that are already spending money to accomplish the objectives that you yourselves are already doing, but they don't know about you, and you have to let yourself be known. You can't depend upon the government to provide the solutions. You also cannot depend upon the businesses to provide a solution. We have to be the ones to connect with them. But I do thank you so much for bringing to everyone's attention here. We have to look within ourselves if we want to move from where we are to where we want to be. Thank you. Any more questions before we close or statements? Raise your hand now. It's time. Chaplain Professor Jarrett, I see you're making a comment. Do you want to make any public statement before we close? If not, we're going to wrap it up. The ball's in your court.
Yeah, thank you for this wonderful meeting. And this is actually what it is in everything for us to do. And in terms of SDG number 17, that's global partnership, this is exactly what we are doing. And I want also to associate myself with the speakers who have spoken before me, that there are things that the government can do, there are things we can do. So let us focus on what we can do, and the government will also do their part. But what I want to say that I was one of those who were there in 2015, as we were ushering sustainable development goals. What we did is we did Action 2015, and what we promised is that let us leave no one behind. As we are moving forward, 2030 is 6 years away from where we are today. Let us not leave everyone behind. Whatever you are trying to do in your community, in whatever area you are associated with, don't walk alone. And if you want to walk alone, the best you can do, you can walk very fast, but be assured you cannot go far. Together, let us look forward and see the targets which have been given towards achieving sustainable development goals, what we can do. Like you are talking about ending poverty. Yes, the government, what the governments do is to give conducive environment. The government cannot go to the farm to farm for you. So let us work together and appreciate the leadership of of the organizers of this meeting. This is what we need to do, and let us keep on trying to do. And I'm sure when we reach 2030, we look for back and say, this far the road has brought us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pastor. And I asked you to let us know, but you're actually calling in from the United States, but I understand you're from Kenya. So thanks so much for your input from that. Any further comments or questions before we close? Now's that time. Raise your hand, or we'll pick this up tomorrow at the same time. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. This is day one of the 4-day volunteers workshop for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And it's brought to you by the World Humanitarian Organization for Peace and Equity, along with my own organization, 5 Points Youth Foundation, LA Global Foundation, Andrew Networks. And you can find this in the WHOPE group on Facebook. We're also streaming this on my own Facebook page. We're streaming on the New World Network. So you can find this in other places, but please make sure we have your contact information in the chat, and we'll email out to you a copy of the Young Person's Guide for this Transforming the World. This is Andrew Williams Jr. Thank you so much. Everyone have a fantastic day.